Let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2, because oddly enough, I don't think many people wanted to hear me talk about this week. I've already given my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2 about 4 years after it was announced. So let's talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, like 2 years after it happened. I'm late to these because I don't really care, but I care enough to talk about it. Once again, normally with these types of things, you know, I usually like to stay relatively evergreen in terms of topics, but you know what? Fuck it. Everybody's pissed off at this thing right now, so like what? I'm not gonna be pissed off with them? Yeah, so it has been an incredibly eventful week or so for video games and Nintendo pop culture in general. There's been like a ton of like trailers and stuff dropping, so it's definitely things have definitely picked up. You know, I feel like over the past like year or so, news about entertainment has been oddly incredibly boring. Definitely a pretty exciting time right now. We've gotten a ton of stuff happening. First and foremost, a week before the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, we had a Nintendo Switch 1 Direct, and it was very mediocre. I like elements from this Switch 1 Direct. I love the fact that we got a new Rhythm Heaven announced. I love the fact we got a new Tomodachi Life announced. Metroid Prime 4 looked really cool. But overall, the general vibe of this Direct, it very much felt like this should have been like a Nintendo Direct Mini, or even like a partner showcase without the, you know, first-party Nintendo titles, because there really wasn't a lot of substance to this one, in my opinion. I liked some of the announcements, but overall, this definitely wasn't really anything to write home about, to be honest. But that's okay, because only a week later, we got the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, which clocked in at pretty much a full hour of non-stop information about this thing. And, yeah, people are fucking pissed. I wouldn't really say it's about the content of the Direct itself, rather what they didn't show in the Direct, that then people had to piece together information about afterwards via different websites from different regions. The main thing people are really pissed about is the price of this thing. They did not say it in the Direct, which bodes well for Nintendo's confidence. $450 for the base Nintendo Switch 2 package. Okay, that is really expensive. I wouldn't call it like an asinine price though. Like, to be honest, I've seen a lot of people talk about this, and like I agreed that like $400 made the most sense for like the price of the Switch 2. The fact it's $50 more expensive than that, it's not a sexy price, but it's not like the end of the world or anything. It is very expensive, more expensive than we've really ever had for Nintendo consoles before. Then we have the game prices. I think the game prices are asinine. $80 for Mario Kart World, and then $70 for most other games. So like $70, like, you know, I'm not a fan of that, but you know, like that is more so the standard right now for AAA releases. $80 for Mario Kart World, I don't understand that. Obviously, like, this game is jam-packed with a ton of stuff, but it doesn't seem like that much grander than $70 or $60 games. You know, like, it looks like a AAA new video game. $80, like, I mean, like, I'm gonna buy it, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna be happy doing it. Who am I kidding? I am literally going to buy nearly everything I'm about to bitch about, so how does this stuff not make me happy? It's really funny because Nintendo is obviously very calculated right now. They really don't want another Wii U situation. And because of that, they left out stuff in the Direct that I think really them over in the end, because they were worried about the price. They were worried about certain things just being really unappealing to the consumer, so they kind of waited until afterwards and just put them in like the websites and all the information that you can find about the console. And because of that, I find that a lot of misinformation was kind of spreading around about a lot of different things. This thing right here was spread around like wildfire. You know, this Nintendo Switch 2 game key card overview, where people are going like, that's it, this is where I draw the line, I am not interested in this console anymore. To that I go, like, then what the fuck were you playing over the past decade? Literally every console has done this kind of shit. The only difference is, like, this is kind of like a standardized thing Nintendo is doing. Not across all games, but just the games that are not going to do, like, a game on the cartridge. So the thing with this is that this is kind of going to be Nintendo's replacement for the, code-in-a-box, digital-only games on the store shelves that you see for Nintendo Switch, and even, like, other consoles like Xbox and PlayStation. But this one is, like, it comes with a game card that basically has nothing on it. It's pretty much a lock and key. You pretty much insert that into your system, and then it'll enable a download of this game. So then, you know, like, it downloads the game to your system, and if you want to play the game, you're gonna have to insert the game cartridge. There's nothing on the game cartridge. It's literally a game key. I'm not a fan of, like, this digital-only nonsense. I think it's lame as hell, but at the same time, I do understand what they're doing here, and I think this is, like, a solution for a bad situation we're in. It doesn't make it a good situation, but it's at the very least like, hey, if a game is going to be doing, like, a digital-only thing, here's a solution to that. So at the very least, like, we shouldn't be seeing any, like, code-in-a-box nonsense anymore. We probably will see it because a lot of game publishers are lame as hell. This is at least a solution where, you know, they don't have to worry about putting the whole game on a cartridge and spending more money in terms of, like, oh, you know, have an 8GB cartridge, a 16GB cartridge, all that stuff. This way, they don't have to put anything on the cartridge other than some access code that the system reads, and then you could resell this game, trade it, you know, lend it to a friend, all of that stuff. You know, it's fundamentally a digital game that you have a physical way of lending to people and all of that, which is nice. Not ideal, but, you know, it's making the best out of a bad situation. I think what really pisses me off are the games that are doing this at launch. I saw Street Fighter 6 is doing a game key card. That at least, like, I'm kind of like, okay, you know, Street Fighter 6 is a pretty big game. It's like 50 gigabytes. Cyberpunk 2077 is going to be fully on the cartridge, which is insane. But that's going to be on, like, a 64 gigabyte cartridge. And so that just shows it's just like, okay, that's on the cartridge, and then Street Fighter 6 isn't on the cartridge? Okay. But at the very least, with Street Fighter 6, I'm like, okay, you have a bunch of DLC included with this edition and all of that. It's like a PS5, PS4 game. Whatever, sure, I'm not happy about that, but at least, like, I guess it makes more sense than fucking Bravely Default being a game key card. The Bravely Default HD remaster, it's a damn 3DS game, and they're not doing a physical release of that. It's like 11 gigabytes. It's like, bro, are you kidding me? That's annoying as hell. I hate that. I'm like, at that point, just do a digital-only release. I don't even want to see a physical copy. Game key cards, I understand when the game itself is, like, way too big. like Street Fighter 6, again, bigger games exist that are getting full physical releases with no internet downloads required, but at the very least, it's big enough to the point where I'm like, sure, like, whatever. Bravely Default, they just got cheap and lazy. I'm like, piss out. Because Nintendo didn't actually, like, address a lot of this stuff, I definitely understand the misinformation going around. You know, there's misinformation that Mario Kart World's physical copy was going to be $90. Like, Jesus Christ. But no, it's $80 across the board. And I'm not really sure why they're doing that outside of the fact that, oh, it's Mario Kart World and people love Mario Kart. We could probably get them to spend $80 on this. Or it could be because you have the $500 Switch 2 bundle that comes with a download code for Mario Kart. So potentially there, you could just straight up, you know, you're saving 30 bucks there by buying that bundle. Nintendo might just want people to buy the $500 bundle, obviously, so, you know, it might be a way for them to get more money out of systems there, or even just kind of get people to get used to downloading their games that way, because who's buying a Switch 2 at launch that's not going to be buying Mario Kart? But speaking of Mario Kart, let's just go through the whole Direct. I'll give my thoughts on everything. Mario Kart World is literally like the second, third, fourth... I don't even know what number we're on. That number, Coming of Christ. I find it so cool that this game it's not just like Mario Kart 8, but more, you know? Like, they actually kind of brought some things back to basics. Like, there's no kart customization like there was in Mario Kart 8, which I'm fine with. You know, kart customization was kind of cool, but the idea was cooler than the execution. The execution was just kind of like, You know, it's not like, wow, I'm making the cart my own thing. You know, it didn't really feel like that. You know, they're bringing things back to like how things were in like Mario Kart Wii and prior, where you know, they just have pre-designed carts for you to select. I'm cool with that. And don't quote me on this, but like I did not notice like any anti-gravity from like Mario Kart 8. Like I don't think any of these courses are really like anti-grav. Some of them go a little wild, like the segment that they show at the very end of the trailer. Like that segment is definitely something that would have been anti-gravity in Mario Kart 8, but like I have not seen any like anti-gravity stuff in this game thus far. And then I don't even think you can go underwater in this game. I think underwater segments have been replaced by like your cart transforms into a boat, so you're going on top of the water. And the hang glider has been replaced with like airplane wings, so it's honestly similar to like Sonic and All-Stars Racing transformed in that way, or Diddy Kong Racing. It's definitely very interesting, but I think genuinely to like go further with Mario Kart, you can't just do like, oh, it's Mario Kart 8, but bigger. Like, you have to step a couple of things back to take a bigger leap forward overall. And this game is really showcasing that. Like, this is such a massive leap forward for Mario Kart just because it's like, it's different. They're doing something different with Mario Kart, but it's still Mario Kart, which is really cool. Like the fact that it takes place in this giant open world. Here's the thing. I know like in recent years of gaming, it's been kind of easy to get fatigued by open world games. Like every game is an open world these days, all of that. But like the way Mario Kart World is doing it is really, really cool. And it doesn't feel like, oh, wow, we're just going open world for the sake of it, eh? Like, you still have your traditional Mario Kart stuff in here. If you want to play Mario Kart World like a traditional Mario Kart game, you can. But the open world honestly kind of takes some of the coolest parts of like previous Mario Kart games and just kind of expands upon it. Like I remember back in like Mario Kart Double Dash, where certain tracks in that game, you can see like the other tracks in that game off in the distance. And the fact that we're kind of like not only taking that concept and kind of expanding upon it, but literally it's literally all this game is the idea that like, hey, this all takes place in one world and the racetracks all exist all around here. You can just drive around and explore. I really hope there's like a ton to explore. I hope this is like a Breath of the Wild situation where just like there's like all these little things in the distance and you're like, oh man, what's that? What's that? What's that? I need to go there. I need to go there. And the fact you can do that all online is really cool. I will definitely say I am a little worried about the overall track design, which has been alleviated since I've seen like the Treehouse stream showcasing like full-blown gameplay in Mario Kart World. There's some really cool tracks in here, but to me, some of these tracks and a lot of the gameplay here almost seems like stuff like the track design is a bit simpler than something like Mario Kart 8's. I know we're all pretty much sick of Mario Kart 8 at this point, and Mario Kart World is like a huge step up in pretty much every way. Like, just seeing like everything that they're doing, it genuinely looks incredible. But I will definitely say, like, some of these tracks, they don't look bad or anything. I just feel like Mario Kart 8 just had a lot more like engaging looking track designs. Now, in terms of like the graphical fidelity and the detail and all of that, Mario Kart World looks phenomenal. But when it comes to like just how the tracks look like they're playing, there's definitely some extra things they're doing, you know, the whole like rail grinding thing and, you know, wall jumping and all of that. But, you know, I just kind of noticed like I'm a little worried if like Mario Kart 8 might have slightly more engaging track design. But like that DK Spaceport track where it's like a reference to the old school Donkey Kong arcade game, and you see like the girders and stuff as you're going towards, and then, you know, you end up going up the ramps, avoiding the barrels. That looks so cool. The fact that you drive to the next track in the Grand Prix is such like a cool idea. I love that. The whole like knockout tour thing, it's pretty much like a battle royale in Mario Kart, you know, like, oh yeah, get top 50 here, get top 30, get top 20. And, you know, if you're not in the top, then you get eliminated. It's kind of almost like also how they did like Nintendo Switch Sports Bowling Online. How like that's done kind of in a similar way. They literally crammed like an infinite amount of characters in this. Like they literally just put like every single like weird ass Mario enemy in here. Which is amazing. I love that. I almost worry if like that would take some of the fun out of a character being in Mario Kart at that point. If they're like, yeah, f it, the fucking snowman is in Mario Kart. And I'm like, The snowman's in Mario Kart. The level it takes to get into Mario Kart has drastically lowered. So at that point, everybody that's begging Mario Kart to become like, oh, I want Super Smash Kart. The idea that like, oh my god, my beloved favorite character got into Mario Kart. It's like, buddy, the dolphin with goggles is in Mario Kart. It's not that impressive. I think it's also cool that this game has like a ton of personality in like its user interface. A lot of Nintendo games within the past 10 years have done like the basic ass like Arial Helvetica text or something as like their UI. It's just really cool to see this one is like really going for like this kind of like off-road kind of feel to it all. Even with like the main theme. The main theme is really, really fun. And like I love the harmonica with it. It feels like really like, damn, we're like off-roading in the country right now. We're going on an adventure. The way the characters look is phenomenal. And I mentioned this when I was first talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal. But Mario Kart 8 still looks amazing. It still looks fantastic. But this, like, brings it to a new level, and it's mostly all in the character detail and animation. These characters literally feel so damn alive, and it's so cool to see them like this, you know, like, and like, I love, like, these slight redesigns they've all gotten, where, like, you know, Mario's eyes are a little bigger, definitely a little pudgier, a little more cartoony, you know, obviously trying to take the traditional 2D Mario art and translating that into 3D. You know, they started doing that with Wonder, and, you know, they're continuing that with Mario Kart World. And, yeah, like I said, like, I think just my favorite thing about this is that, like, it doesn't feel like it's just Mario Kart 8 again with more stuff, you know? We had Mario Kart 8 for 10 years, and it was great. It's one of the best Mario Karts. At this point, it is the best Mario Kart. You have 96 courses in that game. I think it's really damn cool that, like, hey, they are doing something different with this, but it doesn't even feel like it's, like, that different. It's like, it's a perfect blend of everything. There's all these items, too, the new items. They brought the Mega Mushroom back, which, you know, I've bitched about the Mega Mushroom in the past, but I mean, I don't care. I think it's cool as hell that they're bringing certain things back. And as a launch title, this is like, I don't know if you could get a better launch title than this. At this point, like, it's the perfect launch title. And, like, it doesn't feel like they're cutting any corners for it to be at launch. It feels like they've been done with this game for a while. And you can tell, like, they really, really know how popular Mario Kart is. Mario Kart is now officially being treated as, like, Nintendo's top franchise, which is wild. Because, like, it's always been popular, but, you know, obviously in previous years, you know, it's always been about, like, that 3D Mario or big new Zelda game. And it's still always going to be about that. Those are still, like, the tentpole Game of the Year franchises. But Mario Kart, it really does feel like they had unlimited amount of time and budget to make the ultimate Mario Kart game, which is really, really cool. The C button was revealed, and I don't give a shit. I don't understand why Nintendo hid the C button in the initial trailer for the Nintendo Switch 2. The initial trailer, like, the button does not have a logo or anything on it. And then eventually Nintendo ended up, like, you know, in their silly little Nintendo Today app, they were, like, posting all of these little teasers about the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct happening. They're like, oh, 1 day left. And the day before, they did, like, this whole teaser where they're like, the Switch 2 Direct is today! And they did this little thing where they hit the C button, and they're like, what's the C button for? Literally just chatting functionality. I mean, like, the way it's done in this is, like, slick. It looks nice and everything. It looks like it's functionally pretty decent. But to be completely honest, I don't play a ton of online multiplayer games with friends. And if I'm going to, I'm probably just going to use Discord because it's just immediately easier, and I can just, you know, message them on my phone and just do it that way. And then, you know, you don't have to keep playing the game together. You can just chat afterwards too. Like, who knows? I mean, at the very least, it is kind of like fulfilling the lifelong desire for the Nintendo Switch to have messaging functionality within the system itself, which is nice. And the way they're doing it seems cool. Why the hell do I have to buy a USB camera? I thought it was really strange how much they were focusing on the fact that we're using, like, a pretty much a $50 webcam that you use for Zoom. That's what it looks like. I've seen like a lot of like businesses and everything, like in their conference rooms, they have like a camera just like this on a little stand. They put it right there and they do their little video calls. I feel like it would have made sense if the Nintendo Switch 2 just had a camera built in. You know, the fact that, like, okay, this is a hybrid console, you know, you go from handheld to console, and then the fact that, you know, you're pushing an accessory at launch that's literally just like a USB camera that you plug in and it just stays there. You know, it pretty much only works like in console mode. I'm sure you could use it in handheld mode, but it's just awkward. I feel like I'm not sure if this functionality exists with this camera, but it would have made sense if, like, you know, it came with the stand, but you could maybe disconnect the camera head and then just, like, insert it on top of the Nintendo Switch 2. So then you could still, like, you know, hold the Switch 2 and there's, like, this big-ass camera on the top of it or something. It honestly reminds me of, like, the PSP camera, if you've seen that, where it's just, like, this thing that plugs into the top. Yeah, it's just kind of weird. I do think parts of this is kind of cute. You know, the fact that it can detect your face, and then in supported games, they will show, like, your little face, like, next to your character and all of that. It's just weird how much they push this. Like, it's like this, like, oh my god, this brand new amazing thing. I do think, like, the thing about sharing your game screen and sharing your games, too, the fact that they're pretty much bringing back, like, DS download play to the Nintendo Switch 2. There's a lot of cool things here, but, you know, I'm probably not going to be using the C button all too much. I also don't understand why it's a C. I think it would have made sense if it was like a speech bubble or something. Why is it just the letter C? Also, in this Direct, they literally spent like 5 minutes on the C button in this trailer thing. Like, I'm like, my god. They went over a lot of, like, the general specs of the Switch 2. I mean, like, they didn't go, like, super in detail, but it definitely did kind of feel very un-Nintendo-like over the past, like, decade or so. We've known these blokes. You know, the fact they were talking about, like, oh, yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2 can output in 4K and reach 120 frames per second. It just felt a little less, a little not unlike our good pals Nintendo, but you know, I think, you know, this is a bit of a new venture for them, and the Switch 2 does seem fairly powerful. You know, it feels like it's at a pretty good level where at least like a lot of these first-party Nintendo games actually have some legroom now. So, you know, they have the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Nintendo Switch 1 games. So, you know, a couple of games are getting, like, paid upgrades, and a couple of games are getting, like, free upgrades, at least, you know, from Nintendo themselves. You know, I mean, they showed off stuff like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And again, you know, like after the Direct, you get a lot of, like, other information that's like, okay, well, these things are paid. But then the Zelda games are included in Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. But then a couple of these things are free. And, like, it was a little all over the place in terms of messaging. I mean, in the moment, the Direct was perfectly fine, but I think a lot of the information spilled afterwards, just kind of confused. But yeah, I mean, it's really cool to see that, you know, a good handful of Switch games are getting free updates to the Switch 2, but, you know, they're going to be doing paid upgrades for a couple of games. But primarily, it seems like the paid upgrades are going to be games that are actually getting, like, substantial bits of new content with the Nintendo Switch 2 editions. So Mario Party Jamboree is getting, like, a bunch of new, like, DLC pretty much in here. Unfortunately, it's all a bunch of, like, gimmicks that involve, like, the new Switch 2 accessories and the mouse feature of the Joy-Con. I just say unfortunately because, like, I would have preferred, like, more substantial additions rather than, like, oh, let's try to showcase the Switch 2. Like, I would have liked maybe an extra board or something. That would have been kind of cool. And at the very least, I hope, like, these extra mini games are included, like, in the board game mode of Mario Party Jamboree, because as good as Mario Party Jamboree is, its minigame selection gets old kind of fast. And from what I've seen from, like, previews of the Nintendo Switch 2 events they've been doing, Jamboree's, like, webcam mode is actually pretty seamless. It works pretty quickly. It's not like, oh, when you use, like, the Kinect for Xbox 360, which this reminded me of, you don't really have to, like, calibrate it at all. It kind of just detects, like, you and like gets rid of the background for you, kind of like you know, it's all software based. So it's just like, that's cute, I guess, but like I I don't really care. I would have preferred if they did like other stuff with Jamboree. I mean, like, you know, it's fine, you know, like it's nice that Jamboree is getting new content, but you know, I would have preferred like some more substantial extra content rather than just like, oh, let's use a camera and let's use the mouse mode and let's use the microphone and stuff. I'm like, okay, cool, I guess. I do think it's really cool that Nintendo is pretty much updating a good chunk of their Switch games and like games that have been around for a while. I mean, like, you know, Mario Odyssey's getting a free update. For some reason, Big Brain Academy, Brain versus Brain, is getting a Nintendo Switch 2 update. But it does feel kind of cool that, like, this ecosystem is going to live on for quite a while, and the Switch 1 games aren't really seen as like, oh yeah, this is some old nonsense, get those out of there. Nintendo's viewing it as like, no, like, we are going to be supporting these games for the foreseeable future with Switch 2. Like, this is all pretty much one big library now, which is what I wanted, you know, like I bought a ton of Switch 1 games, and it's good to know that, like, yeah, like, this library moves forward, and this library is still relevant. It feels really cool, and it definitely feels good, you know, especially considering, like, all of these remakes and ports and remasters Nintendo has done with Switch 1. It feels really good to know that, like, hey, like, it's almost like Nintendo is building up this perfect catalog of their legacy of software to be playable on, you know, their system and, you know, hopefully their future systems. You know, for a Nintendo Switch 3, these games are going to continue living on, and, you know, you know, it feels really cool. Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 edition, that was rumored to be, you know, the game Nintendo was showing off to developers at like a GDC event, I believe. And I mentioned that in my thoughts on Switch 2 video on Scott Stash, and yep, that's a thing. But they're also doing Tears of the Kingdom, and it's pretty much just down to these games now actually run well. 4K 60 frames per second, that is pretty wild. I think it'll definitely be interesting to try them out. And also, like, they're using the Nintendo Switch Online app, which has now been renamed the Nintendo Switch app, and I think it is kind of cool that Nintendo is renaming a bunch of this nonsense to actually make sense now. Like, calling that the Nintendo Switch app makes a lot more sense, especially now that voice chat is just doable on the Switch 2. So just like, the only reason why anybody used the Switch Online app was to do like the unique little things, like you know, they had the Splatoon stuff, the Smash Brothers stuff, the Animal Crossing stuff, like the game specific things. And it looks like Nintendo is primarily going to be transforming that app into that, where it's like, hey, download the Switch app and you get extra little features. And the stuff they're doing with Zelda is interesting, because it's kind of bringing back the functionality that was scrapped from the Wii U build of Breath of the Wild. Like, they showed that off at like the Game Awards 2014, and then when Breath of the Wild released on Wii U, it didn't have any gamepad functionality. They just scrapped it. But it's kind of cool that they're bringing that back with the smartphone app. And Kirby and the Forgotten Land, it's cool that that's going to have a performance bump. I did find it kind of charming in the Switch 1 version how characters in the background moved at like a really low frame rate. I kind of like that, to be honest. But it is cool that like this game is gonna like run buttery smooth now, and there's gonna be kind of like a little New Game Plus kind of addition there with Star-Crossed World. That's cool, but some of this stuff, like, I kind of would prefer just like enhanced performance, and then like the DLC stuff I think would be cool if they just sold that separately. So like I said, you get like a lot of games that are just getting free updates. Like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are just getting a free update. You don't have to pay for it, and there's no new content included. You know, I think it would be cool. It's kind of weird that like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, like, by and large, the updates for those games are also just performance based, and then if you want to use your app, you can with those. So like, I just find it interesting, like, those games are paid for, even though like they are included with Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. So that's something, but you know, that's a little weird. Metroid Prime 4 has the Switch 2 edition, which the performance on that sounds fucking insane. It's 4K 60 or 1080p 120 frames per second. That is ridiculous. PS5 games can't even reach that. And I know, like, this game is meant to run on a Switch 1, which is fundamentally, like, basically, like, as powerful as an Xbox 360. So it's like, oh, yeah, you're pretty much taking an Xbox 360 game, and oh, wow, it runs, it's easy to run it at a really high frame rate on a much more powerful thing. Wow, I still think it's impressive. You know what I don't think is impressive? The Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Why is that paid? PS5, you got Astro's Playroom for free, which is not like this full huge game. It's like 2 hours long, but I mean, if you want to 100% that game, like, it'll last you about as long as some certain games that you pay full price for, or at least even games that you just flat out pay for, you know, like that was a great deal. Then there's also, like, you know, a pack-in game for like the Steam Deck. You know, there's some competition when it comes to technical showcase games that appear at launch. The Switch 2 Welcome Tour looks like a goddamn, like, interactive exhibit at a museum. The tech demo, like, mini games included with it, genuinely look like tech demo mini games. You know, like, I guess some of them could be kind of cute, you know, using the mouse and everything, but my God, why is this $10? It's literally meant to teach you about the system. Who wants to pay for that? I know I'm going to, but still, you know, like, this just seems like the most no-brainer, like, included with the system. I mean, you're going to get people to, like, really respect the system a lot more, but the fact that you're charging for it, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not saying this game doesn't have $10 worth of content in it, but when so much of the game seems, like, so focused around being, like, an educational guide to your fucking game system, like, yes, it's cute in the way it does it, but, like, for the most part, what they showed here kind of looks like just, like, an interactive version of an instruction manual. And then everything else they're doing here are like asset flips. Like, this speed golf thing is like an asset flip from like Clubhouse Games, like their golf mode. And like, this stuff isn't even like that. Like, look at the dodge the spike balls mini game. Like, there's barely any background. And what is this shit showing you? How to use a goddamn computer mouse? I'll still buy it. And I'll be happy doing it. But I'm definitely gonna have something to talk about in therapy eventually. Drag and Drive. So this is their big mouse showcase game. A lot of people were kind of speculating, oh, what's the big mouse showcase game? You know what I thought? Before the Switch 2 Direct, I kind of thought, like, okay, what could they use the mouse for? And I thought, air hockey. They could make an air hockey game. I wasn't expecting this to be an air hockey game, but I wanted to say that before I saw anybody else mention it. Air hockey. You could do air hockey with the Joy-Con. That would be kind of fun. But no, Drag and Drive is actually like a wheelchair basketball-based game, which is definitely an interesting concept. It is pretty cool, and it definitely does utilize the Joy-Con mouse really well. This game looks like a fucking tech demo, and it's supposedly coming out this year. And it looks like the frame rate is not good. The arenas are completely barren and dark. You have absolutely no character here. It's just like these blank-faced robots. The concept is cute. I think it's like a cute concept that, like, okay, it's an interesting use of the dual mice, you know, like, this is a unique concept, but like, holy crap, bro. What I saw did not impress me, and this does not look like a game that's coming out this year, and I really hope there's like a lot more personality in this game. I hope there's cool arenas, and I hope there's cool characters, and I hope there's more to do, because this looks like a $10 downloadable game currently, but, you know, I hope they prove me wrong, but my God. This did not impress me. The concept kind of impressed me. I'm like, yeah, that's cool that they're using the Joy-Con 2 mice in this way. Yeah, this game did not look even slightly ready to be shown. New Pro Controller looks basically the exact same as the original Switch Pro Controller. Just has the C button now, an audio jack, and it also has like the back buttons, GL and GR. You know, I mean, it's cool that they're there, but I never use that stuff. I mean, like, yeah, it's always just about, like, hey, you can map it there. That's neat. But I do think the concept that I saw, like, I think Nintendo patented something that was potentially, like, a Pro Controller-like controller that was detachable like the Joy-Con with magnets. I was definitely interested to see, like, oh, wow, what if you could detach the Pro Controller grips and then put that onto the Switch 2 and you have much more comfortable controllers there. That would have been cool, but like at the end of the day, like I think this is probably the safer bet. The Pro Controller for Switch 1 is like one of the best controllers, honestly. Like, it feels so good. This looks like it's basically the same thing. I mean, you can use the Switch 1 controllers on Switch 2, which is nice, because this would honestly be really annoying to buy because it is also $10 more expensive than the original Pro Controller, and they don't really add a ton of features here. I'm like, do I really want to spend $80 on this when it's literally just the Switch Pro Controller, but with 2 completely unnecessary buttons on the back for me personally, and a headphone jack, and a C button, which I'm not really going to use. We'll see. If you know me, you know that we'll see means I'm gonna buy it. After all this, we went into a really big third-party section, and this portion just kind of was kind of where like the show kind of went to a crawl. I mean, like after Mario Kart, honestly, the direct kind of like slowed down a bit for me. Like there wasn't a ton of like super exciting things. The third-party section was cool. Like the third-party support the Switch 2 has is amazing. The fact that we went from, like, Wii U, and even the Wii's third-party support with all the crap that got, to what we're getting with Switch 2 is genuinely incredible. The fact that they started off with Elden Ring is really cool. I think my problem is, like, I expected pretty much, like, all of these games. There wasn't a ton of surprises here. Honestly, a lot of these are like, yeah, I kind of expected that. I think it is cool that you could tell, for the most part, these were all the Switch 2 versions because they didn't look as good as they probably could have. But hey, at least that shows, like, the Switch 2 is going to run these games in a playable state. It's probably not going to be, like, the sexiest thing in the world, but, hey, whatever. I'm not going to kink shame. I think what made the third-party section just not that interesting or exciting for me is just the fact that a good handful of these titles were already available on Switch 1, and it wasn't really like, oh wow, the Switch 2 version is going to be crazy. Like Hades 2, yeah, it's great to know that'll be on Switch 2, like it'll have a native Switch 2 version, but it's like, it's Hades 2. It's gonna it was gonna run on the Switch 1. Street Fighter 6 was to be expected, but it was definitely really interesting that they're doing like flat out like a bunch of amiibo for it. I believe like you get the figures, then they also have amiibo cards, which Capcom has done a lot with amiibo, specifically with like Monster Hunter. So it is definitely very interesting that they're doing like Street Fighter amiibo, but yeah, Street Fighter 6 is a great game, and it's really cool that that's going to be on Switch 2 at launch. A big surprise to me was just how much of this stuff is going to be at launch when they were doing like their little like sizzle reels, and they just showed like the sheer amount of these third-party games that are going to be available at launch. So I mean, like let's look at this list of like all these Switch 2 games. So all of these games are going to be available on June 5th, the launch of the system. Arcade Archives 2 Ridge Racer. Wow, it's definitely kind of weird. I guess like they're doing like Arcade Archives 2. And I looked it up, like, why is it called Arcade Archives 2, other than the fact that it's on Switch 2? I guess because, like, all of the Arcade Archives games were, like, sprite-based. Like, they're mostly just all 2D games, where this, like, is kind of like, hey, we're going to be doing 3D games now, so this is Arcade Archives 2. Remember the first year of the Switch, where literally, like, 20 of the games that would release every month were Arcade Archives Neo Geo games? It's good to see we're back with more Arcade Archives junk. That is kind of cool, but we also have Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, which I think is a Switch 2 exclusive game. At the very least, like right now, there's only a Switch 2 version announced. That's weird. I mean, there's no reason why that wouldn't run on Switch 1. It's a 3DS game. And again, like a big problem I have is the fact that the game card is a game key card. I'm like, pshaw, get out of here. We also have Cyberpunk. That's a huge deal. I mean, I really enjoy Cyberpunk. I love the world of Cyberpunk. I think it's really impressive. But, you know, I've played like a good couple of hours of it multiple times. Like, I played through like different campaigns for a couple hours each. But I think having a Switch 2 version is honestly going to be pretty cool. Like, I'm definitely interested in playing that game, like lounging on the couch. And that's going to be available at launch. And I didn't realize that because the North American Nintendo Direct stream froze randomly. Like, they were talking about like some indie game. I'm not saying it was bad or anything. It's just I didn't recognize the game, and I was like, all right. And then it froze, and I'm like, oh God. That was probably the most anxiety I ever experienced this year so far. And, you know, at first it was like, okay, so that froze. And I think they were mentioning, like, Enter the Gungeon 2. And I'm like, okay, I can kind of assume what these games look like, whatever. You know, it's frozen on, like, a certain image, but you can still hear the audio. And then they start talking about Final Fantasy VII. And then they start talking about Cyberpunk. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, I'm like, I don't want to miss any major announcements. And, like, yeah, of course, it happened during, like, probably the biggest third-party announcements during that Direct. So yeah, I mean, Cyberpunk and like the entire game is going to be on the cartridge, which just seems like, you know, it is kind of a big tradition for CD Projekt Red. They were really proud of that with The Witcher 3 on Switch 1. So, you know, the fact that they were able to do that with Cyberpunk for Switch 2 and at launch, no less, is like super impressive. It's really cool that that's going to be available at launch. Deltarune chapters 3 and 4, like on the same day on Switch 2 at launch. Like, this launch is crazy, man. This is intense. Fast Fusion, we're gonna have, like, remember Fast RMX from Switch 1? Now we're gonna have another Fast game available at launch of Switch 2. Fortnite? That's probably gonna be a big deal that Fortnite's actually gonna run well on a Nintendo platform now. Hitman, World of Assassination, that is cool that is going to be available because Hitman 3 was a cloud game only on Switch 1, so it's really cool that, like, the whole Hitman trilogy is going to be available on Switch 2 natively. Hogwarts Legacy, which the Switch 1 version of that is weird. That's, like, one of the weirdest ports within the past, like, couple of years. The fact that, like, that game is supposed to be open world, but the Switch 1 version is, like, sectioned off, so it's not open world. It's weird. So I guess that's cool that game is going to be available on Switch 2 at launch, and it's going to be like pretty much the full-blown game. Kunitsugami, I actually haven't heard of this game, but it's a Capcom game, and it released in 2024, and that's going to be available at launch. Mario Kart World is going to be a launch title. I wonder what everybody's gonna buy, that or Survival Kids by Konami. Yakuza 0 after Yakuza Kiwami released for Switch 1 like last year. Split Fiction, I still haven't played Split Fiction, and I love Haze Light's games. It Takes Two is incredible, and I heard nothing but good things about Split Fiction. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2 S. I love Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, but I'm just going like, what? I feel like they're just trying to replicate what happened with Puyo Puyo Tetris 1 on the Switch 1, the fact that that kind of hit early on for the Switch 1. I'm sure they're trying to see if they can replicate similar success with this, but it's like, bro, like, there's certain things where I'm like, this game is already available on Switch 2. Like, the Switch 2 is backwards compatible with the Switch 1. I don't know who's going to buy this. I don't know what's included with this version. So, like, there are certain games that are getting, like, Switch 2 versions that I'm just kind of going, like, why? Who else got hyped as f to see the Daemon X Machina sequel? Okay. Madden being available on Switch 2 is a pretty big deal. I mean, it's crazy that we went the entire Switch 1 generation without any Madden at all. But you know, the fact, hey, it'll be here for Switch 2 alongside more FC, and WWE 2K is making its triumphant return after WWE 2K18.
Get the fans off their feet.
Oh boy, I can't wait for more of that. Am I being crazy, or like when they had IO Interactive on to talk about Hitman, and they mentioned how James Bond Project 007 was going to be on Switch 2? I was expecting that was going to be the first time we see gameplay of that game, but like I swear that game was announced years ago, and they just played the same like concept trailer that they showed years ago, and they still don't have a name, they still don't have anything, but they're like, it'll be on Switch 2. I'm like, Okay. This one is easy for me to forget about. The fact that they announced new Hyrule Warriors, Age of Imprisonment, which I remember seeing people mention how, hey, they can do a similar thing to Age of Calamity with Tears of the Kingdom, where they can show the imprisoning war. I'm going to be honest, I will play this game, but I've already bitched about Tears of the Kingdom story enough, how I didn't really care about it. So I'm not necessarily all too interested in this one. I do think it is cool that I believe this is going to be a canonical story. I think they mentioned that this is the actual story that happened in the Tears of the Kingdom universe, and that was my biggest problem with Age of Calamity, is the fact that it was some Dumbo baby bullshit, some fairy tale ass version of what happened before Breath of the Wild. I hated that about that game. That game was fun, but like, goddamn, that pissed me off. So it is cool that like I feel like they kind of listened to a lot of complaints with this one, and it is interesting because this is probably going to be like a linkless adventure. Like, it's going to be mostly focused on Princess Zelda and you know, like, because just what happened in Tears of the Kingdom, like, she was trapped in the past, and you know, this is going to be that story, and there's not going to be a Link, so that'll definitely be pretty interesting, I think. And the fact that it's going to be on Switch 2, it's going to run well. I feel like there will probably be Link as like an unlockable or something at the end of the game or something, or whatever, you know. He's probably going to be in there at some point, but I think for the majority of the adventure, it's going to be mostly just about Zelda, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's going to be available during winter, and you know, I mean, sure. I'm not crazy ecstatic over this game, but it makes sense, and I'm definitely interested to just give it a try. But I'm not like I'm not slobbering over this game, you know. I'm like, all right, you know, that makes sense. I would have preferred maybe just like, you know, taking another Nintendo series and doing a Warriors game out of it. You know, I think Xenoblade Warriors would be interesting, and I'm not even a Xenoblade fan, but like, I think, you know, just the variety would be a little interesting. You know, we've already gone to Hyrule Warriors in this style before, but this is definitely going to be like a quality experience, I think. The fact that it's canonical, I think, makes it fine in my eyes. Oh, baby, we got to the GameCube section. This is so cute. This is so fun. The fact that GameCube games are going to be available on Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack is pretty wild. I love this. And, you know, this goes with the whole, like, renaming thing that I was talking about earlier. The name of the app and just the library of games here is no longer, you know, like, let's say, oh, GameCube, Nintendo Switch Online, NES, Nintendo Switch Online. They renamed it to Nintendo Classics. I am interested what they're going to rename the Sega Genesis app, though. Like, is that going to be called Nintendo Classics? Is that just going to still be called Nintendo Switch Online? I don't know. But, yeah, you know, they renamed it. Makes a lot more sense now. It's honestly kind of like bringing back the branding from the NES and SNES Classic Edition. How at the top of those boxes, it says, like, you know, it shows the controller and it says Classics and all of that. So it's kind of bringing that branding back in a strange way. The fact that this is going to be available at launch too is wild. So GameCube emulation is pretty easy overall. Everybody can do it. Like, Dolphin is like one of the easiest, most user-friendly emulators to deal with. Still cool as hell. I really like this. And just the fact that we can look forward to monthly or potentially just random drops of like GameCube games getting added to this service is so damn cool. Like, I can just imagine, like, they're literally just gonna throw fucking Barnyard for GameCube at us one day. That's fucking awesome. I'm a little surprised that they didn't do Melee. You know, I mean, they haven't even done Smash 64 yet for the N64 app, but I definitely found it a little interesting that, you know, like when they were showing all the games they were going to add in the future, I was expecting to see a little Melee at the end. I thought that would have been kind of like the big stinger, but still, the selection is kind of cool. You know, they're starting with Wind Waker, which doesn't deconfirm a Wind Waker HD port, but it is definitely a little strange. At the very least, like with GameCube on Nintendo Switch Online, with that being exclusive to Switch 2, it definitely makes sense that, you know, like, oh, we'll probably get you know, like Wind Waker HD or Twilight Princess HD as a Switch 1 game that you can then, you know, play on your Switch 2. Soul Calibur 2 is incredible. You know, the fact that we have that on Switch 2 and, you know, it has the link and everything is super cool. F-Zero GX is an incredible game, and, you know, in fact, we're going to get the original version of Sunshine, the Pokemon games, Strikers, Chibi Robo, Luigi's Mansion. It's incredible. And yeah, just the fact that like we can look forward to just like randomly seeing like GameCube games get added to Nintendo Switch Online, like that is so much more exciting to me than waiting for like a random Nintendo 64 game to drop, or just seeing what they can pull out of their ass for the NES or SNES at this point. Like, holy, they're adding golf! It's really cool. I'm really excited about that. The GameCube controller is really cool. Having like a fully, you know, brand new wireless GameCube controller is gonna be super neat. I really like that. You know, we can always use our GameCube controllers on Switch with the USB adapters and all of that, but oh boy, I'm happy about that. Hey, I called Civilization 7. Getting a Switch 2 version with mouse support. Borderlands 4 coming is neat, I guess. You know, like a lot of this is like, okay, you know, cool. Final Fantasy 7 Remake is definitely going to be really cool to have in a handheld form. And but you know, like that's kind of like yeah, like I expected that. Like I think everybody kind of expected that. Them like showing like Hollow Knight Silk Song, like I'm like yeah, all right, buddy. That's like such like a dumb like little like, oh yeah, a little crowd pleaser. Here you go. Who knows if it'll come out this year? I don't know. Overall, I thought the third-party support was definitely really, really strong here. I think my biggest problem, though, is the fact that it took up such a big chunk of the Direct. It was like a good 20 minutes or so of the Direct was pretty much purely focused on third-party games. And like I said, like these are cool. I think certain games, like they showed like Star Wars Outlaws is coming to Switch 2. Now, is that a game that like I'm really going to sit down and enjoy on my PS5? I don't really care about that game enough to do that. But, you know, the thought of actually doing that in handheld mode, I'm like, you know, actually, that wouldn't be that bad. You know, just launch on the couch, playing like kind of like a little brain dead kind of game like that. I'm like, I don't know. It's definitely, you know, I hope kind of like that pure magic of being able to play console games on the go is kind of like reignited with the Switch 2. Because, you know, seeing games like this on handheld, I feel like it's definitely going to hit a lot harder in person. But then again, you know, we've had stuff like the Steam Deck, you know, in recent years. And, you know, I feel like, you know, seeing this stuff isn't going to be as, like, wild, like, mind-blowing, like, oh my gosh. But definitely very cool. But the novelty is definitely not as there as it was with the Switch 1. And also, honestly, like, a good chunk of the Direct being filled with these games when, like, yeah, most of these are, like, old games. Like, it's cool that they're coming to Switch 2, but there's not much to really talk about other than, like, oh, that's cool. And you're also not going, like, how did they do this? It's just like, yeah, the Switch 2 is more powerful, you know, like, I don't know. There were so many, like, miracle ports on the Switch 1 that I'm kind of going, like, yeah, they could get Nier Automata running on Switch 1. Am I really that shocked that they got Final Fantasy VII Remake on Switch 2? Now, I think what was the most surprising thing was at the very end, they announced the Duskbloods from Software. So, an exclusive From Software game. It is a multiplayer-focused title. Like, I think it's entirely multiplayer-focused, so I'm not really sure if this is, like, going to be, like a big, like, oh, yeah, this is, like, From Software's next Elden Ring. Like, I feel like it's probably not going to be that. It's probably kind of one of their lesser titles. But, I mean, it's a Miyazaki game. You know, he's the director of all kind of, like, the major, you know, typical From Software games. But he's not directing, like let's say, Elden Ring Night Rain, which is the multiplayer Elden Ring game. But he's directing this. So, I don't know. We'll see. But, you know, I think it's just a massive thing to just see, like, yeah, we're getting a From Software exclusive game for Switch 2. I believe it is published by Nintendo. And at the time, I almost thought, like, what if this is like Bloodborne? Which doesn't make any sense because I believe Sony owns the IP to Bloodborne. But, like, honestly, stranger things have happened because, like, in the Switch 1 Direct we got the week prior, like, that had like a handful of Sony IPs that Sony licensed out to get like multi-platform releases. So it's just like everybody's golf is a Sony IP, and that got like that was shown in the Nintendo Direct because Sony doesn't give a shit about that series anymore, so they let Bandai Namco publish like a new one. And the same goes for like Patapon. Like these are all PlayStation Sony owned franchises that they don't care. Like, yeah, sure, that can get a Switch port. Bandai Namco, you handle all this. We don't care about these franchises anymore. So even though I bet you they do care about Bloodborne, but like I feel like there was like this part of me that I'm like, this, like, Sony owns this, so it's probably not this. It might be like a weird spiritual successor, like in the same universe kind of thing. I don't know. I honestly don't know enough about a lot of From Software stuff, but at the very least, I think it is really cool. And it shows that, like, Nintendo means business with this thing. The fact that they're willing to work with From Software, one of the hottest names in gaming. You know, like, just the fact, seeing their name is just, like, enough for people to go, like, oh my god. So, yeah, that's a huge deal. That's a 2026 game. And then they only had 2 announcements left, and they were both first-party announcements. And that's kind of my biggest disappointment with the Direct itself was kind of the lack of focus on first-party Nintendo. And I think, like, the Switch 1 Direct the week prior, it was weird because, like, it didn't really answer a lot of questions for me. Part of me is kind of like the Switch 1 Direct would have made sense if it showed off more, like, first-party Nintendo games that were releasing over the next coming months. But what that Direct pretty much did was just showcase, like, 2 brand new Nintendo games that were releasing in 2026. So that didn't really answer many questions. And then when it came to Switch 2 content that they showed off in this Direct, pretty much most of it was like, all we really know about is, like, what's releasing within the first month of the Switch 2. And then outside of that, like, there's a couple of games we know about, but not a ton. So, you know, I was almost expecting to get basically the entirety of 2025, like, scheduled out and to just know, like, what was releasing. But, I mean, I guess it makes sense if they would do something like, hey, you know, Switch 2 launches June 5th, and then, you know, a couple weeks later, Nintendo's been doing, like, these June Directs every year, kind of in replacement of E3. And, you know, I think it would make sense if, like, a couple weeks after Switch 2 releases, they do another Nintendo Direct, and, you know, they follow up on some of the games that they talked about here. And, you know, they also announced more games to come out later in 2025. But I think that was the kind of the biggest disappointment for me, was kind of a lack of focus on first party releases. But, you know, they had 2 final announcements, with the first of the 2 being Kirby Air Riders being directed by Sakurai. And they actually announced this later, but it's being developed by Bandai Namco. I like Kirby Air Ride. It's not like my favorite thing. I didn't grow up with it, so like playing it, I'm like, this is cool. I respect it. But just the fact that we got a sequel developed by Sakurai. Sakurai came back to Kirby, which I believe he was already off of the Kirby franchise when he came to work on Kirby Air Ride for the GameCube. So the fact that, like, the concept of Kirby Air Ride is enough for Sakurai to come back to Kirby twice at this point. This is just really cool to see. It's really, really cool. I'm really happy to see Sakurai do something that's not Smash Brothers. I think he kind of deserves, like, a fun project like this that you can tell, like, he's just like, I want to do another Kirby Air Ride, and he's able to do it, and that's really cool. Definitely came out of nowhere, too. Like, I just was not expecting a Kirby Air Ride sequel to be one of the tentpole games Nintendo shows off for the Switch 2 in its big debut Direct. Very, very neat. I'm very interested to see how it, you know, what it plays like and everything. You know, the trailer didn't show any gameplay or anything, but yeah, I do think, like, that does kind of go along with the lack of first-party games. You know, the fact that they show off Mario Kart World, and then one of the other few first-party games they show off and announce is another racing game. So, you know, I do love that this was announced, but, you know, I do wish there was, like, maybe 2 other first-party announcements, I guess. But, oh my god. The final announcement, I'm in love. So everybody was predicting, like, 3D Mario. I was predicting 3D Mario. But, you know, there have been rumors for years at this point that the Mario Odyssey team was not working on a new 3D Mario. Instead, they were working on a 3D Donkey Kong game. And, yeah, it turns out that was right. And it's a Switch 2 practically launch title. It's coming out like within a month of its launch, which is insane. Like, that's incredible. This game literally looks so fucking cool, and I am so happy to see that like the trailer has like over 1.5 million views within a day. It seems like people are interested in this, because I was a little terrified that nobody else, everybody, I was a little terrified that like, oh, what if I'm one of the only people that thinks like this is fucking awesome, and then everybody else is like, I don't want a fucking Donkey Kong game, I want a 3D Mario, or I want this, or I want that. No, this game looks so damn good. It looks so cool. The visuals and the visual quality of this game is amazing. The animations and expressions that Donkey Kong has, you know, they're using this new design for Donkey Kong where, you know, he doesn't have the furrowed brow anymore. I mean, like, he can get angry, but they definitely want to have him be a little goofier now and just have more expressions. So, you know, they kind of make him a little more chummy with his new eyebrows. And you know, I mean, I think it takes some time to get used to. I did like the new design when we saw it initially in the Switch 2 reveal trailer. But, I mean, even just seeing, like, you know, the key art for Mario Kart World with, like, Donkey Kong eating a big-ass burger, like, I think he looks really good there. And then just seeing all of his unique poses and his unique expressions in Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is an incredible name. Oh my god, it's so good. His movement is so damn cool in this game. It looks like one of the best things about Mario Odyssey is the movement in that game. Just feeling like you can just pull off all these different moves. And you can see, like, a lot of different moves Donkey Kong pulls off in Bonanza that really feel like it invokes the same thing. And it's obviously done by the Mario Odyssey team. Like, the UI feels so damn similar. They give Donkey Kong a little companion, much like how they always have to do that in 3D Mario games. You know, like, oh, he gets Flood and Sunshine, he gets Luma in the Galaxy games, he gets Cappy in Mario Odyssey. You know, he has a little rock buddy here, and you know, like, it just feels like they wanted to do something new and just something fresh, and that's what this feels like. You know, I'm happy this isn't a 3D Mario. I definitely want a 3D Mario for Switch 2. I really hope that, you know, maybe they were sitting on this game for a while, and within the next 2 years we're gonna see a 3D Mario come out, or maybe they have a different section of the team working on it. Maybe they have like one section that was working on Donkey Kong and one section that was working on Mario. But for the big AAA like 3D platformer kind of like showcase game, this is so damn cool. I think it's so cool that they're like, they seem proud of this game. It's not that they weren't proud of previous Donkey Kong games, but, you know, like Donkey Kong Country Returns was a big deal. Tropical Freeze was sort of just petered out, you know, like it was like they were proud of that, but like that game was kind of seen as like another 2D game. This one feels like they are really focusing on it like it's a 3D Mario. Like, damn, this is your big new game. And just, the box art, oh my god, it looks fucking awesome. The fact that you can just tear apart the whole like terrain, and that's a big element. You know, it feels like this is like a combination of like everything Donkey Kong has been. You know, you can definitely get like some Jungle Beat vibes from this, but then, you know, they're also referencing a shit ton from Donkey Kong Country, and that's really cool because Jungle Beat didn't do anything with Donkey Kong Country. It almost acted like Donkey Kong Country never existed. This one, like, they're just celebrating Donkey Kong, but also moving him forward and doing something brand new with him. And it is so damn cool because Donkey Kong is like such a well-known IP. Everybody knows Donkey Kong, and his games do well. Like, Donkey Kong can be like a leading mascot for Nintendo when they want him to be. Like, Donkey Kong Country, when that hit on the Super Nintendo, did numbers. It was like one of the biggest games that generation, and that was basically a reboot. You know, like Donkey Kong prior to that was just like the 3 arcade games. And then, you know, you get Country in the Country series, and then 64, and like, you know, Donkey Kong was big back then, and then, you know, it kind of petered out, just, you know, a bunch of spin-offs throughout the 2000s. But then you get Donkey Kong Country Returns, and, you know, that was a big deal on Wii. That did very well. But, you know, it felt like they would go hard with Donkey Kong, but then it would eventually peter out, and then, you know, they didn't really know what to do with him. And, you know, I felt like that happened multiple times at this point. And Bonanza feels like they are really going like, Donkey Kong is one of our main fucking guys, and let's treat him like it. and it looks amazing. The music in the trailer feels so exciting. I love it. And like, oh my God, his face, his animations are so good. These like character models are so smooth. Like, this feels like a genuine next-gen Nintendo game. And it is so exciting to be at this point where it's just like, this doesn't look like it would work on Switch 1. This looks so smooth. This looks so unique and creative and fun. I'm in love with this game. I cannot wait to try it out. So like overall, I mean, ending on that was like really, really like, I was like smitten. I was like, this is so cool. Then, you know, I was like, that was a good direct, you know. I think like the third party section kind of brought it down for me, not because it was bad, but just because like it just wasn't that interesting. A lot of it was kind of like, this game's coming to Switch 2. I'm like, cool. That was just kind of the extent of my reaction to a lot of that. And going over a lot of like the tech specs and stuff, it was definitely interesting, but a lot of it like I kind of already knew. But I saw a lot of people kind of had the same sentiment. They were pretty happy with what was shown. I think a lot of the Nintendo announcements were fantastic. I think the games they showed off were like they were at the top of their game with Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, and a lot of stuff like, you know, like just seeing like some cool updates to Switch 1 games, and you know, it was weird. They leaked Yoshi's Woolly World for Switch 1, which was kind of cute. Yeah, having like GameCube a part of NSO, that's super fun. I'm really happy about that. Game quality looks cool. Third party stuff look cool. But now everybody's acting like this system is the second coming of the fucking devil. Listen, man, I'm not happy about these prices. They're fucking weird. They're bad. I don't understand why Mario Kart's this expensive. I mean, $70 for Donkey Kong. Like, I'm like, yeah, like that's what the standard is, I guess, for AAA games. It's possible to think at the same time, these prices are absurd, and then also everybody is bitching way too much. I think the Nintendo Switch 2 at the current price, I think it'll do fine. I think it will initially do very well, and then, you know, the sales might peter out a little bit, you know, like we might be in like a 3DS situation, I guess. Or, you know, you have all the diehard fans rushing to buy it at launch. A couple months later, you don't have as many people that are looking to buy it because it might be a little too pricey. And then whatever happens, man. If Nintendo is like, oh, wow, this isn't doing very well, they're going to drop the price, or they're going to add more incentives. And if the price is really that much of a sticking point for you, yeah, you should wait. Because, you know, if enough people think the way you do, which apparently a lot of people are, then yeah, you know, they're gonna course correct. But you know what? I think a lot of the people that are bitching are actually gonna buy the system at launch. And Nintendo's never gonna drop the damn price ever. Overall, I was fairly content with what they showed. I thought it was a pretty decent direct. Definitely had a really great beginning and end, and the middle was kind of like, you know, like, all right, you know, I'm just hanging out, watching this right now. But yeah, I think the system does look really nice. I think the power of it seems like it's at a very solid level. The games Nintendo showed off, specifically, you know, Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, I thought were incredible. I love them. Price is absolutely ridiculous. I think the console price is expensive, but I don't think it's like absolutely like absurd. I think it's like it's like doable, I guess. It's in game console price territory. And, you know, you're getting a fair amount with this, you know, like in terms of functionality and compatibility with a bunch of different games, all of this nonsense, whatever. I'm not advocating for the price, but I also don't think it's like absurd. Game prices are absurd, specifically Mario Kart. That's kind of the main thing. But even then, you know, at the very least, you can buy the bundle. But even then, I see people complaining that like, oh, well, the bundle is a limited production. They're not going to be making them for forever. They're only going to be making them throughout up until the holiday season or something. Like they said, like, oh, we're not going to be making these forever. This will pretty much be around like launch time. And then, you know, they're not going to be available going into the holiday season. And I'm just like, I don't see why that's really much of an issue. I feel like they're just going to introduce another bundle or something. Or like they might introduce a fucking bundle with like Mario Kart World and like a Nintendo Switch Online subscription or something. I don't know. Like it's just like, yeah, it's a bundle with a download code in it. There's definitely going to be more Nintendo Switch 2 bundles with download codes in it. You know, like they're probably just going like, hey, this isn't going to be like available all the time. We're going to be doing this for like the first couple of months. And people are acting like this is like fucked up. Like, what the? Oh my God. They're fucking with us. I don't think it's that deep, buddy. I feel like a lot of people just think like this console is designed to just absolutely just exploit the hell out of them. And I'm going like, yeah, there are a lot of shitty things going on, but it's like, I feel like people are trying to look for even more problems with it, and they're looking at things and they're pointing and they're going like, look, they're fucking with us. It's like with the game key cards and the bundle and all of that. I honestly think the biggest problem is just the price of the system is $50 more expensive than I would have wanted it to be, and then Mario Kart World is $80 for some goddamn reason. Other than that, those are kind of the only big issues I have, honestly. Oh, what the f*** am I thinking? The box art sucks! Oh my God. Okay, so it's obvious Nintendo doesn't want to have a repeat of the Wii U. But even that, the Wii U had such a different fucking box art to the Wii. So, like, they tried with that one. This one... Okay, I hate the fact that, like, it is growing on me. Not in the sense that I like it now, but, like, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, I'm getting used to it. But it's obvious to me they didn't want to do, like, the whole, like, Switch 2 logo in the corner, like with the Switch 1, because there's a chance that, like, you know, you're going to confuse it for a Switch 1 game. I really like the Switch 1 boxes. They're very simple, but, like, I think the logo in the corner is such a very bold choice. It looks nice. And, you know, it's unique. It looks good. And, like, you can see a good chunk of the box art that way. You know, like, not a ton of the box art is obscured with the Switch logo there. The Switch 2 one, there's no, like, there's no statement here. There's no, like, unique style they're going for here. It's literally a top banner with the Switch 2 logo in the middle. And it just looks weird. Like, I'm like... The Switch 2 logo being in the middle, it oddly looks a little too small. I feel like they should have done something where it's like, I don't know, like maybe the Switch 2 logo is in the corner, and like maybe it's just the Joy-Con logo in the corner, and then the actual Nintendo Switch, like, text is kind of more so, like, you know, following it. Almost like the PlayStation boxes, how, you know, you have the PlayStation logo and then the actual, like, you know, like PS5 or PlayStation 2 or something like that. This just looks dumb. This looks like it's like they're literally doing something like, oh, well, we have to make sure it looks different, but it's like the box is already fucking red, which is kind of cute. And you know what's also kind of cool is the fact that the spines, I believe, are going to be not all red. It's going to have like a unique art on the side, which is cool. So I'm kind of like, all right, you know, that's kind of cool. I like the consistency of the Switch 1 games, but, you know, just being in a sea of red, it makes it kind of hard to see all the games you have from a distance because they all look the same, you know, and the text is so small that, like, you really have to go up in front of them and you have to, like, whatever, almost go one by one to find the game you're looking for. These Switch 2 editions, I mean, like, look at the Kirby and the Forgotten Land box art. It's just fucking just filled to the brim with all this bullshit. You get, like, the addition, like, oh, Star-Crossed Road, like, addition to the box art. And then you have this giant wall of text at the bottom that's literally, like, explaining what this is. This is the Nintendo Switch 1 game with the Nintendo Switch 2 enhancements added to it. And it has that for everything, and every box art has a damn QR code on it. This is rough. I would have probably preferred if the Switch 2 header was, like, a little smaller, just a little thinner. I would have liked that. I don't know why it needs to be that big. I've seen a lot of, like, fan art, like, mock-ups of, like, a better version of this, and, like, nearly all of them look a million times better. But the box arts themselves, like the Mario Kart World box art and the Donkey Kong Bonanza box art, look super good. Oh my god. It's really nice. But the box template itself is just a little dumb. I don't like it. It feels like they're, like, desperately trying to make this, like, oh, we can't make this confusing for the consumer. But at that point, why the f didn't they mention the price in the Nintendo Direct? That just confused the hell out of everybody. Overall, the prices are stupid, but other than that, I'm actually cool with most of this. I think there's some good-ass games they showed off. I think third-party support seems really damn good for the Switch 2. And overall, I'm just really excited that this ecosystem is living on. The menu of the Switch 2 sucks. They didn't really change it up. They changed up some elements of it. The eShop is new. Like, it definitely does look a lot better. But I kind of wish that they kind of went in and they did a little bit more. I actually don't mind the Switch 1 menu. I think I just would like to see it just expand more throughout the years. Like, I wish there was just more to it. But I do like how snappy and quick it is. And so it's just like, I don't mind that it's basically the same damn thing, but I also do sorta. So yeah, Nintendo Switch 2, yeah, pretty cool. But talking about Crayola Scoot would have been even cooler.